Welcome to the Inflection Podcast, where we explore the pivotal moments that have shaped us into who we are today. I am your host, Anebi, and I can't wait to dive into these moments with you. Let's get it.
Awesome. So it's fantastic to have you with me here, Tara. Thank you so much for making the time to connect. Found you on LinkedIn. I knew like what you had a special sauce going on. I was super excited to do a recording with you.
Yay! Well, I'm so excited that you asked, and I've loved following your journey as well, and I just really appreciate you bringing me on. So happy to be here.
Awesome. So as you know, I am mildly obsessed with the inflection points we have, right? Tara today, even me today, didn't just get here, all of a sudden by accident. Life is a series of inflection points over our lifetimes, leading us to where we're at. So with your focus on creating awesome tailored content on LinkedIn, I am curious, like for you, what was that tipping point, that inflection point to say, you know what, I want to make the leap to creating stuff on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So it's so funny. I always joke that I'm like the anti-LinkedIn, content person, because I so believe in the power of people's journey. And even though so much of what I do is really encouraging people to use their words and to share and to show up, my journey was doing it very much in a way that genuinely felt authentic to where I was when I started. So I started sharing posts publicly in June of 2020. That's when I really started. Like I kind of had put something out a few months before, but really in June, that was my inflection point of, you know what, I've been on the sidelines, I've been learning, time to jump in. Before that, for almost a year, I had been lurking. Everybody kind of disses that term, but I'm like, I loved being a lurker, and that's very much me. I come into a new job. I come into a new place where I don't know anybody. And I like to spend a little bit of time reading the room, learning, kind of taking my time quietly, learning kind of the social, rules of what's going on, and just trying to understand people and having kind of private conversations behind the scenes just to get to know people and to become a part of the community. And so I did that for, like I said, almost a year before I really feel like I kind of had a safety net of people encouraging me, saying, okay, Tara, like it's time for you to get out there. I had been supporting other people's content through comments. I'd been developing friendships, DMs, having Zoom calls, really feeling like I was a part of the community, to the point where it was time for me to start saying, you know what, I have some things to share. I may as well just put myself out there and see what happens. And shocking, nothing I was afraid of happened. So I'm like, I should have done this sooner, but for me, it was right on time with what felt right for me in that season of life.
That is super cool. So would you say those encouragers you had, right, were a catalyst to help you jump in the fray, right? Get off the sidelines and jump in the ring?
100%. I had a community internally at my company that was already doing this a little bit, and our CEO was already out there. And so I had that, but then I also had a community externally in LinkedIn of just genuine relationships that I developed behind the scenes. And so that's why I say it wasn't really a risky move on my behalf, because I don't feel like when you're taking risks within the confines of community, it actually felt like a very safe thing to do. And I felt like I had people that were going to cheer me on. And that made it so comfortable, and it felt so good. I didn't feel like I was just jumping out into the great unknown, to be met with no community, crickets, and it's social media. So we want those social bonds. So 1000%, the encouragers were what gave me the strength to do it and the courage to do it and the belief to do it. And so that's why I think, I know that that's the number one thing I want to give other people is encouragement.
Yeah, I definitely see that in your posts. Just the way you write, you have a very conversational way to write and encouraging. If I could rate the sentiment, right, of most of your posts, it's from a place of encouragement and from a caring heart. So really resonate with that. So how does that connect to? So you started creating on LinkedIn, and all of a sudden these publications are picking up your stuff. Like how was that? Like
Well, it felt like all of a sudden, but it really took a couple years. And honestly, it was a relationship. A friend of mine, Perry Hedrick, I think a lot of people probably follow him. If you don't, you need to follow him. He is amazing.
All right.
He is an incredible writer. He owns a PR agency, Crackle PR. But he connected me behind the scenes. He knew somebody who was writing an article about ghostwriting on LinkedIn. And that was something that I had been doing for a while at that point, over a year. And just connected me with them. And we had a great interview. And then I was featured in the follow-up story to that as well. And then a couple other publications reached out to me just to get, honestly, my take on LinkedIn, on ghostwriting, and really how that has exploded over the last few years. And now I feel like I'm kind of one of the OGs for the ghostwriting crew, because there's so many amazing ones now. But when I was doing it, it was still very new. People didn't really know that it was a thing. So it was a lot of fun just to be able to share, what was kind of a newer industry a couple of years ago that's now becoming more and more normalized.
Yeah, that's cool. So when you started ghostwriting, I know right now your entity is called Happy Words. Was that something later on you thought, okay, I'm going to formalize this thing, this is blowing up, or from the get-go, was that the idea? You started Happy Words, you're behind the scenes, and you made that switch to, what, I'm going to beyond ghostwriting and helping other people blow up, I will create for my own self too.
Yeah,
so
it was
that?
definitely the first. it happened I put the cart before the horse, so to speak. So it just kind of happened. And then after a few months, I'm like, maybe I should formalize this. Maybe I should get a website, and just figure out a way that makes it a little more official, but it's still me. It's been a very interesting journey over the last few years, and which is very much me. I never just take a linear path for anything. So the ghostwriting and Happy Words, and really what's become of that, has also been a very non-linear journey, but one that's really reflected the seasons of life, as well as how I best can serve people in each season.
I love it. I will put links to that in the show notes afterwards for folks. Really fantastic service. So I know you have some interesting things on the horizon for Happy Words courses and all of that stuff. Do you have a timeline for that, and willing to share any snippets?
Yeah, so I'm doing some really fun. Yeah, I'm doing some fun projects with some friends right now, and we're just kind of trying to put a few bows on it, and finish those things up. But as far as personally, a big change that I have made in the last, almost a year now, has been moving not so much out of ghostwriting. I still get to ghostwrite, which is super fun for me as a writer, and I always call it acting with words. So that's like my sandbox, my playtime. But where I've really just kind of gone back to my roots is I'm doing a lot more training and leading in workshops and helping teams as well as individuals just understand LinkedIn, not necessarily write for them, but it's definitely the framework of teaching them to fish and then encouraging them to go ahead and do that. So I've done some coaching, content coaching, and led workshops and led trainings. And my background is really in leadership development and as well as writing and editing. So being able to kind of make a career out of doing all of that, not just one side of it, not just the writing and not just the training, leading and speaking, but finding something that really works well with all of those in my season of life, has been a really fun journey. And nobody said this is what you have to do, but for me, it's just developed naturally out of clients' needs and people's needs in the moment.
That is fantastic. What would you say from your own journey, right? Growing Happy Words and jumping right into it. For those on the precipice thinking of making a leap, it could be into LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. You do too. Or just generally trying to think through a career move or pivot. What are some things from your anecdotal experience you would share with such a person who's on the cusp?
Yeah. So, I think one of those, it's the biggest it's the biggest journey of our lives. I feel like for so many of us, for anybody who's even interested in this conversation, I've already kind of pigeonholed somebody who wants to be successful, somebody who wants to be an achiever, someone who's either thinking of going out on their own or maybe starting a side hustle, is really honoring, I will say it over and over, honoring your core values and your alignment to yourself, but really getting clear on what does the season of life require of you. So for years, I always tried to fit my season of life into my career. If I'm an editor, or if I'm, working in sales or marketing, I have this family life that's very important to me, a personal life. And I just tried to shove every piece of it into my career. And what I found was that was completely unfulfilling for me, because my highest core value really is being with my family, and it's being available to my sons. It's being available to my husband. It's being available to myself. And I wasn't honoring that when I was trying to do things kind of out of order for me. And it was very much, it felt misalignment. But instead, when I decided, okay, in this season of life, I'm going to instead try to work. Here's my core value. Here's my unmovable box, of my family and my values. I'm going to fit my work into that finally, because I love them both very much in different ways, of course. But I didn't know how to do that. And so little by little, I basically just started transferring work into my season and allowing it to shape it. And even though there has been so many temptations, again, to make work my number one, I've been really diligent these past couple of years of saying no. And I've had mentors help me with this, because I'm not great at it. I'm like, work all the time, I could do that. But I really want to honor where I am right now. So that is my best piece of advice, is choose a path that will allow you to fit work into the season of life that you're in, instead of constantly battling to fit your season of life into work. And that might mean, hey, this season I'm in my 20s and I don't have a bunch of responsibilities. So this is the time that I can keep my 9 to 5 or keep my day job and really explore what my passions are, really explore how I can make money doing something I love in those 5 to 9 hours. But for me, I'm in my 40s, and I've got a very thriving family who need a lot of attention. And so that was very different in this season. I know you've got a crawling a little baby, so you're going to have it. And we're all going to have different things. That's why I will never give blanket advice. I will just say, this has been what has worked for me. And this is what I'm learning in this season. And I know 10 years from now, I'm going to have a totally different mindset shift and what will work for me in my 50s, which is crazy to even think, but I'll be there. But that is the people that I have talked to who have made any kind of career pivot or change, but who have honored their core values, their season of life, and their work together. They are genuinely, I will say, the most fulfilled people.
OMG, that is fantastic. I'm taking notes here. And that's something absolutely I resonate with. For me, when we had our daughter Raya, she's 8 months now and crawling all over the place. And that was the big inflection point, right?
Yes.
I was working, I had my agency, I was working like 14-hour work days and more. And I really had to reevaluate and say, what's important. And for me, it was, I wanted to be available to my wife, to our daughter, and, talk with people all the time. And you hear, it's cliche, but it's true. The days are long and the years are short, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I had to really think through. Like, do I want to keep working like I am and realize, oh, wow, she's 16. Or do I need to make adjustments? And for me, the answer was clear, right? Make adjustments and, change how I was doing things, such that it was family first and then work feeding into that, versus the other way around, which was how it was. Yeah. So that was like a big change for me. But thank you so much for sharing that, Tara. And then on the business side, you've grown this thriving business. You've mentioned a few things, mentors being one of them. I think you're one who, you work with mentors. I've gotten a lot of benefit from mentors as well. But are there a few other things too, advice you have for small business owners who are like, oh my gosh, running a small business is such a grind. So what are some things that you would say have helped your business thrive? And it looks like for the foreseeable future, you're growing, you have some cool things on the horizon. So what are some things, if you could, just to share for those folks?
Yeah. So my biggest advice is to say no. And I know everybody, it's such like a thing to put on a poster, and it's something, we want to put as like a badge of honor. Like, I said no today, but I'm like, when it comes to us, again, I'm totally sifting out a perceived audience here. It's not going to be for everybody, but if you're listening to this, if you're trying to grow something, then I get you. And saying no is hard. It is so hard. I will run myself into the ground, saying, okay, I'm doing all this to provide for my highest value, which is my family, or I'm trying to do this for that or whatever. But in actuality, I think that the best growth actually comes the less that we do. And what I mean is not in this, I live in a fairy tale and butterflies kind of reality where just do less and you'll make more. No, like that's a great, you have to, we got to pay the bills. We want to do all of these things, but really for me, choosing not to scale was the best decision that I ever made. And,
Wow.
and it kept me from repeating the same mistakes that I had made in my previous career. And my CEO left me with the best advice when I left that company. And he said, Tara, don't trade one crazy for 10. And I knew exactly what he meant was you are one person. So don't go all of a sudden out and get 10 clients. And now instead of having one big client, AKA my company, that I was working for before full time, and now I've got 10 little, companies that I'm working with and for. Well, what did I do? I did just that. It took a year, and then all of a sudden, and it hit, I think November of a year later, and I had 11 clients and I was out of my mind. I was making more, I was bringing it all in, but then I had a decision. Do I scale or do I cut back? And I actually decided from a mentor who just said, no is going to become my best friend. So I started saying no a lot, and it allowed me to get crystal clear with who I wanted to work with, crystal clear with what I wanted to do. Granted, that grew, and I'm still growing, and I'm fine with that. I love that. But I will always choose to say my sanity is worth more than a paycheck, and my sanity of doing things the way I want. I do not want to be a CEO of an agency right now in this season of life. Again, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe not, maybe 5 months from now, I don't know. But for right now, in this past season, I really wanted to be present with my now 5-year-old and my 14 and 12 and make sure that I was doing the things that still brought me life, that still allowed me and allows me to serve my clients well. But that has come on the back of saying no to a lot of opportunity and revenue, and holding firm to that has been the best decision because I've grown within that. Maybe not in the, revenue, huge number, all of that kind of thing, but it's allowed me to serve well in a way that fits for me. And I feel like I have grown so much by saying no, instead of just spinning my wheels, saying yes, getting into complete delivery mode. Because again, just me, so I have to do everything. It's allowed me to get creative, to look at other opportunities. I don't think would have gone into workshops and trainings, which I really love, had I been just writing, and just been on that side of things. So say no and you'll grow.
Counterintuitive, but true. Very true. Well, thank you so much, Tara. It's been a pleasure having you with me at the Inflection podcast today. And I look forward to continue to follow your journey and learning from your awesome content.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.